So, Andrew, if you don't mind, try handing me the. Let me see if I can request to share my screen while the other participant is sharing. So I think you have to stop sharing, and then I have to start sharing.
Okay, there you go.
Okay, so let me see if I can. Okay. So let's see if you can see this. Can you see this?
Yep, got it.
LD Crypto Suite registry. Okay, all right. So we're going to start off at the top. So this is very much specific to kind of how the credentials community groups does this stuff, but it's pretty much the same process anywhere else in a community group in W3C or anywhere else in W3C. The only difference is that your staff contact, like if you're in an official working group, your staff contact would have to do a couple of these things. So the process we're going to go through is we are going to create a new repository. We're going to configure it such that it's like it's set up and useful for the CG process. And then we're going to put a respec document in there and then start editing the respec document. So that's the general process we're going to go over today. So the first step there is that we need to create the new repo. To do this, we go to GitHub. This is the W3C Credentials Community Group. There is a new button here that we click, so we do new. And I think the thing that we're doing today is we're doing the primer, right? So did primer.
Yep,
so we type in the repository name. The description is a primer for decentralized identifiers. It's a public repo, don't make it private. So public repo. And usually you can initialize with like a license or whatever, but we're not going to do that. So we're just going to create the repository here. Then after we create the repository, there are two things that we have to do. One of them is do the initial commit, but we also have to add teams and collaborators. So here we're going to do the first thing and add teams and collaborators to the repository. We already have like an editors team, specification editors. So in this case, Andrew, I don't think you're a spec editor. So we're also going to go through the process of adding you to the spec editors. So we click editors here. There are 12 people that are in this group. And we're going to give them write access. So the specification editors can write. And then we're going to go and check out who's on that team. We have 4 pending people. So Christian, Pele, and Lionel. Andrew, what's your GitHub username?
Probably Andrew Hughes 3000.
Andrew HUGHES 3123. There we go. Okay, so it says you're not a member of the organization. I'm going to add you. Add Andrew Hughes.
This is.
Go ahead.
Is there any chance you can add me as well?
Yep. So I'll add Andrew. Andrew, you're going to get an email, and you're going to have to accept that email. So while you're doing that, I'll add Dimitri and anybody else on here that wants to be an editor. Oh no, it's code name Dimitri, right?
I think it's still Dimitri Zagadulin on GitHub. I haven't changed it.
Okay, Dimitri there you are. Okay, so you. Anyone else want to be added? And we can always add later on. Okay, so now we see up at the top here, Andrew's on the editor's team, and then as soon as Dimitri clicks OK, he'll be there as well. Okay, so now we're going to jump back to here, I guess. So we're at did primer. Oh, hold on one second. Teams and collaborators. Okay, there we go. So editors are there. Okay, so that basically means at this point, both Andrew and Dimitri and any other editor can start making changes to this repository. but we haven't actually created the repository in the first place. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now, just to create the initial commit. Let's see. I'm trying to figure out exactly which screen I'm going to share. So let me find. I'm going to drop to the command line to do this. Nobody else has to do that. I'm just going to kind of, this is mostly for like the chairs that need to set stuff up. Let me do a new share and then share my terminal here. Let's see. Okay, can folks see this? Hello?
Yes.
Okay, so.
Echo canceller started acting funny.
Oh, okay. Is it still okay? Like you can see me doing LSs and things like that?
No, we're not seeing that window.
Are you seeing that? Hi, Andrew.
I'm not either. All I'm seeing is repeated lines that say the echo canceller started acting funny and got slapped reset. It's where
That's probably your console. Right?
Yeah, I'm sharing the wrong one. Let me share this one. What about this one? Hi.
Yep, that's it.
Okay, there we go. All right, right terminal. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and do a git clone. So again, this is a command line. If you're not familiar with command line stuff, don't worry about it. You can still edit. And once we hand it over to Andrew, he's going to install a desktop app and do it through that. But for right now, I'm going to do a git clone, and then I'm going to clone this did primer GitHub repository. And I'm going to go and did primer. And there's nothing in this repository right now. It's just an empty directory with a git directory. I'm going to edit a readme.md file. And I'm going to say this is the primer for decentralized identifiers. This document is a primer for decentralized identifiers. Whoops. Wrong editor. Hold on 1 second. It's not my usual machine. Okay, and so I'm going to write that to disk. Okay, so again, I'm in the did primer directory. There's one file in it now, readme.md. I'm going to look at the readme.md file, and it says a primer for decentralized identifiers. And that's going to be the first commit here. And
yeah, one question: that did spec, for example, doesn't have a README. It only has the HTML file itself. But
correct. Yeah, it doesn't. And this is not a required part. I'm just creating the repo, so the rest of us can kind of work on it. Add README. Commit. Oh crap. I have to set up. So this is a machine I haven't set up at all. So Sporny at digital.com. So ignore this. I guess config global user.
Yeah, I'll be running the video through my editor to clip out the extra stuff.
Okay, great. So this add initial readme.md. Okay, so again, there's one file in here. This is the very first commit. Git log. I just committed something that said I just added this initial README file. And then I'm going to do a git push up to GitHub. and that's going to write it to GitHub. So now there's a repository with one commit in it, and it's on GitHub. So I'm gonna switch back to
Manu. Can I ask a question?
Yep.
Stone here.
Yep. Go ahead.
I know you're working on the master branch. Does it matter? I know the W3C stuff is generally GH pages.
Yes. Good question. That I'm just getting to that. So I'm going to do that thing right now. So I guess, yeah, I should probably show that as well. So let me switch back to the terminal. Okay. And then git branch -a. If you see there's a git branch -a, there's a master branch here, right? Never, ever do spec editing on the master branch. In fact, I'm going to now destroy the master branch and create a new branch. So git checkout -b gh pages, git branch, let's see.
Oh wait, can I add something?
Sure, yep, go ahead.
So recently, fairly recently, GitHub made it so that you can publish the master branch to the web instead of GitHub pages, right?
Yes, correct. And we don't use that because we don't want to confuse people. Meaning like there are lots of old tutorials that say use GH pages. So yes, you can do that. I haven't seen too many W3C groups doing that yet. And this may be something that could change in the future. But for right now, GH pages is the thing that is published. But yes, good point, Dimitri. Okay, so I've basically pushed both of these things up to GH pages. Sorry, up to GitHub. I'm going to switch back over to the browser window here. And then I'm going to refresh the page. And now it should say there's one commit. There are two branches, GH pages and master, right? And then this README file here that I edited that says, you know, the text I put in there is a primer for decentralized identifiers. This document is a primer for decentralized identifiers, right? So for those of you that are connected to Zoom, I'm just in the chat window, I'm just going to share that URL. So if anyone goes there, you should see exactly what I'm seeing here, which is just one file with this content in there. Okay, so now for the second stage of the setup process, I go to settings. This is mostly for the chairs. I go to branches. I switch the default branch to GH pages and do an update. Yes, understand that this is the default branch is now GH pages, and I protect that branch, which basically means that you're not allowed to force push to it. And what that basically means is that people sometimes accidentally totally destroy the history. And so we're protecting this branch so that the history can't be destroyed. So you have to be an administrator if you're going to destroy history. This is because we have 12 editors, and not all 12 editors know how to use GitHub well. And sometimes people accidentally destroy history, and we want to prevent them from destroying everybody else's history as well.
Thank you for looking into my future and knowing that.
Yeah, so it's you know, it's to protect us from each other. So that's it. The other thing, so now we see that GH pages here is a protected branch. Let me see. The other thing here that's important is integrations and services. If you're part of the CCG, this PR preview tool is automatically set up for you. So that should, I believe, be automatically set up. Yep. So that's automatically set up. We'll get to that later, so don't worry about that right now. But that's pretty much it. So as an admin, like a chair, all you have to do.
Preview thing.
Go ahead.
Menu.
Yep.
Your staff contact has to set that up for the W3C repos. That doesn't come as a default.
That is correct. Yeah, if you're in an official W3C working group, your staff contact has to set that up. But since we're in the credentials community group, we have already set that up for every single CCG repo. So if you're in the credentials community group, you just get that by default enabled. And let's see, branches, I think that's good. Let's see, options, I think there's one more option. So we keep everything enabled, but we don't use like the wikis and the issues and the projects. We'll just keep everything enabled. The merge button, we disable merge commits. Again, most people don't have to worry about this. We're just recording it for the chairs, but we don't want to allow merge commits because it makes the history all funky and complicated. So the only type of merging we allow is squash merging and rebase merging. Just a data point for folks. Let's see, it's saying your site is published at GH Pages. We can choose a theme if we want to, but we're just going to keep that as the default. And that's it. So all the defaults basically for the options for the repo are fine, except for allow merge commits. We want to take that off and not allow anyone to do that because it results in funky histories. Okay, so that's set up. Like, we're done. Like, that's how you set up a brand new work item for the CCG from scratch, and we're done with the setup. Now the next step is going to be actually putting a respec file in there and being able to view it. So Andrew, do you want to do that, or do you want me to go through and do that, and we instead use your stuff to do and edit? The only reason I'm thinking it might be good for me to do it is just so I can just set up the boilerplate, because the boilerplate respec you have is fine, but it doesn't have any of the tons of other stuff that we put in there for the CCG stuff. So I'm wondering if it would be better off if we just start with the CCG template.
Yeah, why don't
show people how to get to it?
Because like I said, I'm gonna do some post-production on this and produce it as a CCG artifact. So why don't you run through it, and that way we get it done quickly.
Okay. All right. That sounds good. Okay. All right. So I'm going to go to settings here. I just need to see the GitHub Pages URL. So we're going to go here and see what shows up, right? So right now it's just a README file that shows up here. So did primer for decentralized identifiers. And this is like what's served on the web. So this is the URL that we're going to be using for like the live version that everybody in the world sees of the specification. So we can see that there's something here. It's just not the right thing. It's not a respec document. So what we need to do now is we need to add a respec file there. So this is what the page looks like right now. Our next commit is going to add a basic file there. So I'm going to switch back to the terminal. I believe this is the right one. Yep. And then I'm going to do a git pull just to make sure I have everything. Everything's up to date. And what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to find another CCG repo respec file, and I'm just going to copy it and rip everything out of it. So it'd be nice if we had a template for the CCG, but we don't have that. And basically, this is the same process that most editors go through when they're starting from scratch. So I've already cloned a repository, the LD Crypto Suite registry. I'm going to copy that index.html file. This is a respec file, by the way, into this directory. So many of you will hear the words respec said over and over again. Respec is the software program that is used to properly format W3C specifications, whether they're community group specifications or working group specifications or whatever. Respec is basically used for all of that stuff. It's HTML based. So basically, if you know how to edit an HTML document, respec should be fairly easy for you to kind of learn. There's a good website that has all of the tips and tricks and all that kind of stuff that I'll show everyone in a bit. But for right now, it's just basically like HTML. And there are parts of the HTML that you don't touch, and there are parts of the HTML that you should definitely edit. So what I'm going to do here, this is a file that I stole from another repository. I'm going to edit it in whatever editor you want. I need to switch windows and share this. Okay, so this is the editor window. Hopefully everyone can see that.
Yes,
And it says Link Data Cryptographic Suite Registry. So I'm just going to go top down and start modifying things. Don't worry if you don't get everything that I'm doing. We're just recording everything so that people know what to strip out and what to leave. I will explain line by line what each one of these things is. Again, don't worry about remembering it because there's a lot of detail here you don't have to remember. All right, so we start at the top. This is an HTML file. The title tag for an HTML file is what shows up at the top of the browser window. We're going to say the title of this specification is a primer for decentralized identifiers. Content type UTF-8, that's fine. This is where it pulls in respec, so we don't touch that line. And this next thing, this next bit, all of this down here is the respec config. So we say this is a community group draft. That's the status of the specification. This is a community group draft. The short name is did-primer. Subtitle is everything you wanted to know about it. Being flippant, we'll change that later. The GitHub URL is did-primer. So it's github.com, github.com, W3C, credentials community group, did primer. And then the draft URI, this is where people can view a live version of it. So it's W3C CCG, github.io. So this is how GitHub publishes web pages. So see how this domain is different from github.com. So this is where you do a live preview, and we're going to do did-primer there. Editors are Andrew Hughes, and then Drummond. Well, actually, let me do this. So we're going to add a new editor, and that's Andrew. So this is the list of editors that shows up at the top of the document. Andrew Hughes. And then, Andrew, I'm going to let you fill in your own homepage URL. So there's a personal URL. So this is the personal URL. Fix me personal URL. And then the company name. And then the company URL, if there is one. You don't need to include those, but for example, if you're not associated with the company right now, you don't need to include those. Company URL. And then myself and Drummond on this as well. And then the authors, you just basically say, the credentials community group authored the document, if that's true. The name of the working group, WG, is the credentials community group. The URL to the community group is this thing. The mailing list for the community group is this with w3.org at the end of it. Patent URI is basically, this document is created under the IPR policy of the community group. So you specify that. Max top level is the table of contents. How deep do you want the table of contents to go? And then there's some processing rules. And that's it. That's the configuration of respec. That's basically, you're probably not going to have to touch that again. until this this document goes into like a working group, if it goes into a working group. Let me stop there and see if there are any questions at this point.
Nope, I don't have any.
Okay. Okay, so now we're into the actual document itself. So I'm going to delete large sections of this document because it doesn't apply. Remember, we're copying this from the Crypto Suite registry, which has a bunch of stuff that we just don't want in this document. But fundamentally, W3C spec has a couple of sections that you need to have in it. The first one is the abstract. So abstract TBD. This just introduces the people to the document in one paragraph. The next is the status of the document. So this is where you tell people whether this is a community group spec or an official working group spec, or this is a candidate recommendation or an official W3C global standard. That's all done in the status of the document. Anything that you need to tell people about, like this is the state this document is in, goes in the status of the document section. Right now, we basically just tell people to submit GitHub issues on the spec. So this says did spec, it should say did primer. So W3C CCG, did primer, issues, send comments to public credentials. You can see the archive of all discussions in public credentials. Let's see, portions of this work funded by DHS S&T, which is true. Still, those two are still true. It's not. Okay, so that's boilerplate we have to have in there because DHS S&T is paying for some of the work that's going in here. And then since we're the CCG, we include rebooting Web of Trust. Well, let's see. Yeah, because the primer it was worked at rebooting. But we're missing a couple of names from here. So I'm just going to say, this needs to be fixed. So class issue, names in this section need to be updated. Okay. This is a respec-ism. This class issue is a respec thing. You can do class note if you're like making some kind of note, like note that so-and-so is a bad way to do something or a good way to do something. And then issue will mark it up as this. So notes are marked up in green, like a green box will appear around them. Issues will have a red box around them and say that this is something serious in the spec that needs to be dealt with.
Can I ask you a question, Manu?
Yes,
Why
please.
is there no aria in this? Like class equals issue marks it up with red and there's a box, but that should kind of be like world equals warning.
Yes. So the aria stuff, I believe, is auto-injected. Respec will automatically put the aria stuff in there when it does post-processing.
Got it. Thank you.
So the aria stuff, for those that don't know, is accessibility stuff. So things that, people that are have site issues or disabilities or even cognitive concerns or issues, there are ways of providing accessibility hints to things like screen readers, to things like displays, so that displays display these things in different ways. So if the machine knows that the person is red-green colorblind, then it's not going to, in theory, it doesn't use red and green as the colors to differentiate between issue and note. It'll use a different set of colors. But the reason I believe it's auto-generated is because people suck at putting in accessible hints to the documents that they're writing. Most people don't even know how to do that or know what the right thing to do is. So respec takes care of a lot of that stuff for you. So that's why it's not in here. But we should generate the actual final document and make sure that it's actually injected in there. So something to look out for. Was that the question you were asking, Svea?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Thank you.
Okay. So we're done with the status of the document section, and then everything else is just like, in the introduction. This is where the specs start. So introduction, TBD, and so everything from here, pretty much to the end of the document, I'm just going to delete, because that's, should be the content, the main content. Let me make sure I did not screw this up. So there's a section up there for the abstract. There's another section here. I think I have mismatch tags. There's a section here, and then I don't think we need this section there. Okay. All right. So that's basically it. Like, this is a skeleton credentials community group document. You've got a title, you've got the respec configuration here, you have an abstract, you have the status of the document, and then you have an introduction. And then that's it. Like, that's the skeleton, that's the start. So next up, we're going to preview what this looks like in a browser window. And hopefully everything will work. Let's see. So I'm going to switch over to my browser window there. Let me make sure that there's...
Okay. You're not sharing the browser window. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, that's not... Hold on 1 second. Let me whoops. Share... One, share screen. Okay, now you can see the browser window.
Yep.
Okay, and then source. And okay, so let me check to make sure this actually works before I start talking. Crap, of course it doesn't work. Oh, because of syntax error, possibly. Unexpected token equal sign. So I changed something in the config that broke it. So I'm currently trying to see what I broke. So I'm checking all my parentheses and that kind of stuff. Not seeing anything.
Double check the columns in your editor list, commas. That's what I missed, and it blew up the respect.
Oh, like
comma between names in your array list.
Oh, I got you.
After the break, I wasn't paying attention. But.
Yeah, they look fine, but of course, like, let me see if it'll actually show me. Oh, you know what? Respec might be broken, which would be very sad. Is that right? Let me see.
Hey, do you typically host your own instance of the respec JavaScript, or do you reference a publicly hosted one?
We usually reference the publicly hosted one, and every now and then it breaks in horrible ways, like potentially what we're seeing right now. So they do constant releases, so like every 2 or 3 days there's a new release of respec, and in an attempt to kind of keep up to date, we link to the live version, but the live version sometimes breaks.
So the did spec has its... Oh, sorry to interrupt. The did spec has its own version.
Yeah, so let me go ahead and grab. I might need to grab that. So give me a sec. History. Yeah. 184 did spec.get did.
I know. I just opened a file off my computer, and respec's working there, so it's probably in your config.
Yeah, you're right. Actually, let me see if the crypto suite registry works. So I should be able to go here, crypto suite registry. No, I'm having the same issue. So you might have a cached version, maybe. Or it could be that there's some kind of weird funky access control issue that I'm having on this machine. Let me copy the didspec one over and see if that fixes it. Did primer did spec. Did spec. Hey, Marcus, I'm not seeing one in the did spec. Yeah, let me go and get a previous version of respec. Respec, GitHub. This, unfortunately, this all happens rarely. Actually, you know what? Hey, Matt, can you check out? Well, give me a second to think. Let me see if this is just me that's having the issue. Did primer?
You want me to go clone it and try it on my?
Yeah. Yes, please. So I'm gonna get add index. Come in. Add initial index.html file.
Hey, the didspec does have its own copy of common.js and the index.html references.
Yeah, the common.js is not respec. Respec is a much bigger thing. It's common.js is like a common configuration that we use across multiple specs. And I think we've stopped using it. Although, did I think, yeah, that's out of there. So Matt, go ahead and clone it and see if you can see.
Okay, working on it. Oops.
And then in the meantime, I'm going to go and try and get respec, release of respec from GitHub. Start spec, guide. Let me see if I can roll back to a previous release, or rather, if there is a previous release I can do.
Respec's working for me. It's your machine.
Yeah, it works for me too.
Okay. So maybe at this point, we should jump over to somebody else's machine. I don't know why it's broken here. It could be the version of Chromium I'm using is too old.
Can you try a different browser?
Maybe it's the local file. You're opening a local file. If you open the GitHub pages on GitHub.
Oh yeah. So can you guys look at the? Well, actually, here. So let's do this.
And I did a cron open the local file in Safari, and the formatting was proper.
Interesting. So I'm loading it off the web, and I'm still getting a failure. See, this is the actual this is served off of the web, and I'm getting a syntax error.
Do you have Firefox installed by any chance on that machine?
Yeah, let me try Firefox. That would be strange. It would be the first time I've seen Chrome fail. And no, same issue with Firefox. Interesting. Okay, so how about this? Let's see, Andrew, can you look at that file? So let's set you up, Andrew. Right. So all I've done at this point is just do the basic setup. Let's get it so that you're actually doing a pull request. Okay, so we're going to switch from how people typically do this, like how people. So everything that we've seen up to this point would be what the chairs would do, or an editor, would do to set just set the repository up. From now on out, we're going to have somebody else take over and other people do pull requests. So let's do that. So Andrew, we're going to walk through you installing all the tooling that you would need to edit, to do a pull request. Does that sound good as the next step?
Yes, I already have GitHub Desktop installed.
Okay, great. So let's go ahead and start screen sharing and bring up GitHub Desktop.
Okay. Of course, I have no idea how to use it.
That's okay. We're going to go through using it right now. Okay. All right. So the first thing that you're going to do is you're going to try to clone an existing repository. So click on add a repository at the top left. Oh, actually, you know what? Wait. Let's open up a window, a browser tab, and show people where you installed this from, just so we have it recorded.
Okay. And what would you like me to type?
Go to github.com or search for GitHub Desktop or something like that. Do they have a search for GitHub? Just do a Google search for GitHub Desktop. And then there you go. Okay, so if you want to start using, like if you want to start doing editing, this is the thing that you use. So go to this site, desktop.github.com. You click on the download link, you install it, and then you basically get the screen that Andrew has in the background there. So let's go ahead and switch. So this is the screen. Once you install GitHub for desktop, this is what you'll see. So the first thing that you need to do is you need to add a repository. You want to click clone there on the right. So it's not picking up all of your repositories. Why is that? Maybe shut down GitHub Desktop and bring it back up. It probably hasn't resynced.
There was a sync button.
Yeah. Maybe you might have to click. Go ahead and click add repository, and if that doesn't work, you might have to click the sync button. But sync usually just syncs with the repo. There we go. Okay, so you've got a bunch of W3 CCG things now. Did primer, go ahead and click on that. Clone, that's fine. Okay, so what the screen shows you, so that's it. Like you've cloned something from GitHub. There are 2 commits there. It shows a picture of the person that did the commits. So if you remember back, I added an initial README file, and then I added the index.html file. And the thing that you see on the right, all that green and the pluses are all of the lines that were added. So what we're going to do, Andrew, is you're going to add like your personal your personal web page to the spec, right? And you're going to do it as a pull request. So we're going to go through the editing process. So whenever you want to make changes to these documents, you do them as pull requests. So go ahead and let's see. You're going to have to start editing this index.html file. Sometimes you can right-click on the index.html and click edit, but you might not be able to do that. Yeah, so you're going to, it's not, definitely don't do that. You're going to have to open like a file browser and find where this folder exists on your system. Have you done that yet? Like it's in the GitHub directory, but I don't know where the GitHub directory is on your Mac.
Yeah, set. Where did I put it?
There you go. There it is. Okay, yep, and go ahead and open this, and you can open it in any of your favorite editors. So Atom's great. Okay, and at this point, it's just like a text editor, right? So what you have right now, what you're looking at right now is the file. But before editing it, Andrew, let's go back to GitHub for Desktop. Okay, we're going to go through the standard edit cycle. So here's the standard edit cycle. You clone a repository, you branch. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to branch, you're going to do an edit, you're going to commit that edit, and then you're going to push it up and then do a pull request. So that process, that 5-step process, is just what you do over and over and over again. So again, the process is you create a fork. So go ahead and see that little button. Yeah, that one, I think, creates a new branch. Name the branch your name, like, you know, AC Hughes or whatever it is. If you have a whatever your username is that people remember you as. Usually you want to do your GitHub username. Yours is a bit long, and then use lowercase. So ACH is fine. Dash, and then what you're going to do on this branch. So it could be like ACH dash homepage is a good name for this branch, because the thing you're going to do on this branch is you're going to update your homepage. So click on create branch. Okay. Now what you have is a local branch. It's just sitting on your machine. It hasn't been synced to GitHub. You haven't made any changes. That's what that 0 changes thing is showing up there. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to edit the file, right? So go back to your editor window. Go down to that fix me personal URL and fix me company URL and type in whatever you want that to be. And you have to put an HTTP : or HTTPS : in front of it. There you go. And then do a trailing slash as well. That should be good. And then company and company URL, if you want to list that. And if it's the same, oh, go ahead and put company. Is it? Yeah. Sorry. Go ahead. Stop talking.
Okay.
Okay. That's good. Good. Okay. Now save it.
Yep.
So just save the document and then go back to your GitHub for Desktop thing. Okay, so see this thing that popped up? It's basically saying you've made some changes, right? So the red is things that have been removed, the green is things that have been added, and if you can see, it'll highlight exactly what text you added, right? So we watched Andrew delete Fix Me Personal, Fix Me Company, and he added his ID Musings and ITIM Consulting stuff, right? So it's basically telling you these are the changes that you've made, and it's just a good sanity check so that, you know, what's showing up is what was actually changed. Sometimes when people, sometimes when you go and you edit, your cat walks across the keyboard or your kids come and slam on the keyboard and delete half the document. This is where you see that stuff come up, right? So you want to make sure that everything looks kosher before you make a commit. So in the bottom left there, it says summary and description. All you're going to do is type in a summary. And the summary is what's going to show up in the commit log. It's what everybody else is going to see as you saying this is the thing that you did. And just to be very clear, so the summaries have a very specific format that we like everyone to follow. It is always active voice. So update instead of updated, fix instead of fixed. You're basically speaking as if this is the thing that you're actively doing. So update personal URL, good. Usually you want to end it with a period. Don't go over 58 characters. or 58-ish characters. The reason for that is that you're trying to reduce eye strain for people, and when you go over around 60 to 80 characters, it's usually around 60, people have to start reading left to right. And when you think about these commit logs, there can be 50 or 60 commits that people have to scan through. So they like to scan top down. Like the more like eye movement left and right you're doing, the more stressed your eyes become. And while that sounds like a ridiculous thing to like be concerned about, remember that many of us that are doing spec editing look at hundreds to thousands of commits a day. And so the nicer you can be to the editors, the happier they're going to be. So it's good to have short, terse things. So you updated the personal URL, good. And now you're going to commit. So when you commit to your local system. You still haven't pushed it up to GitHub. Let's see. So if you look at the top right there, it's got like a little timeline and a little fork, right? So that's showing you like that's your commit. So if you click on that little donut, it'll show you the, well, I guess it's not showing you. I don't know why it's not showing you. Can you click on that, or is it just not letting you do that?
I think I'm already here.
I don't know. Okay, that's fine. Okay, so what you're going to do now is you can do two things. One of them is you can just publish. You can push it back to GitHub so that everybody else can see it, or you can just create a new pull request. So let's go ahead. Let's go ahead and do a pull request. So go ahead and click on pull request. And this is basically saying, what do you want to put in here, update personal URL. Go ahead and click on send pull request. That's fine. That note is just for the other editors so they know what you're doing. Okay, so now a pull request has been created on GitHub. Let's see. So I'm going to ask you to stop sharing your screen, Andrew, and I'm going to jump back to me to basically simulate what everybody else basically sees, right? So I'm going to share my screen, go here, share screen, and I'm going to go back to GitHub here in the did primer. Okay. So basically what Andrew has done is he has suggested an update and a change to the specification. And I'm someone else, right? I'm another editor or another person that's looking at the repository. And I'll notice, I note that like right here where it says pull request 1, can everyone see my screen?
Yep.
Okay, so where it says pull requests 1, that used to say 0. So when Andrew hit that pull request button, this thing changed. So I click on pull requests, and I see that there's a new one that's opened from Andrew, right? It says update personal URL. It was opened a minute ago, and I can click on it and go through to it and take a look at it, right? So let's see. Yep. Okay. So this is basically pull request 1. I can look at what was actually changed. So I can look at the commits, and we see that there's just one commit that he's made, update personal URL. And if I look at the files changed, I'll be able to see exactly what he changed. Now this looks a lot like the screen that he was looking at, except this is on the GitHub website, right? So I can see that he added this and this and that. And that's what he changed, right? Okay, so now what typically happens at this stage is people start doing comments. So this is a fairly simple, straightforward one, and we can pull it in. But I'm just going to demonstrate what commenting on a pull request looks like. So if I say, this looks good. Thanks for filling in your personal website name. When I comment, I can start doing a review. So this is not Andrew doing it. Somebody else is going to come in and do a review, right? So here it says I made a comment here, and then here I can basically be like, don't know if you want to use your personal website as the company one or vice versa. Are you sure? And this gives Andrew a chance to like respond back. So Andrew, if you can go to this thing here, this URL, the did primer URL, and then go to that pull request. Actually, go ahead and share your screen so we can see you do this. And actually, before you do that, I'm going to, let me, sorry, jumping all around. I'm gonna finish my review comments, right? So I'm still sharing my screen. I'm gonna say, looks good to me, minor nits, minor nitpicks on URL. And I'm going to approve this pull request, basically saying that like, I think it's good to go. You can also do things like request changes, like I don't want you to pull this pull request in until you respond to me and fix the things that I'm asking you to fix. And then comments are like, I'm not approving it or denying it. I'm just talking out loud.
Yeah, passive aggressive.
Sorry, say that again?
Being passive aggressive.
Yeah, yes, exactly. This is the passive aggressive button. This is actively aggressive. This is passively aggressive. And approve is like you're cool with everything. So I'm going to say, I'm fine with this. Like, go ahead and pull it in, and I'm going to click submit review. And then GitHub's going to take a little bit of time. Okay. So if we look back at this history, Andrew put in this pull request, says update personal URL. And then it sees a little check mark from me saying I approve these changes, and then the comments that I made in case Andrew wants to respond, right? Okay, now let's switch back to Andrew's screen. Okay, and then bring up a browser, and then, yep, GitHub, W3CCCG. And then /did-primer. Here we go. Okay. And then you're going to click on pull requests. And then click on update personal URL. And then down there, you can see like I commented on things. And so you can respond to them. So for each comment that I put in there, it talks about the line. So I made a comment on a very specific line. And then you can basically be like, no, I'm cool with this, like this is good, or F off, or whatever, depending on what I said. Okay, there we go, good. All right, and at this point, like we're ready to merge, right? So everything's looking good. Scroll down, like Andrew, like you're an editor, so at this point you make a judgment call. Like if you pull this text into the spec, is someone going to basically say like object and like demand that you remove it, or do you think most people are going to be cool with it? So at this point, we're pretty sure just about everyone's going to be cool with it. See that squash and merge button up there? Don't press it yet. Do the down button. Always rebase and merge, almost always. So if you're an editor and you're pulling this stuff, always rebase and merge. It just makes the commit history really nice and pretty and clean, and people know what happened at what time. Squashing and merging, the only time you do that is when there's a huge amount of thrashing back and forth. Like there's a pull request that has a bunch of changes where people added stuff and then they removed it and then they added it back in. And if you want to just basically be like, look, everyone here, you were arguing over 2 sentences and we just committed like 15 changes to 2 sentences. Let's just call it one edit and go. That's the only time that you do a squash and merge, is when you basically want to destroy when you want to compress the history into a single commit. Otherwise, you do rebase and merge. So basically, always do rebase and merge so that people can kind of see the thought process that went into how the spec was changed. So go ahead and rebase.
Is there a way to set the rebase and merge as the default for the repo in the settings?
I was going to ask the same.
There is. I forget where that setting is. Oh, actually, there is. But if you, as someone using the system, does one squash and merge, it pretends that that's your default now until you do rebase and merge. So the default will always default to whatever what's in the repo, but then it'll default to the last thing that you did.
Weird.
So it's just always be cognizant of what you're doing. You should almost always be doing a rebase and merge. So go ahead and click on rebase and merge, and then click up there on the rebase and merge button. And then you can click confirm rebase and merge. And then it'll do its magic behind the scenes. And then, yay, the pull request has successfully merged and has been closed. And at this point, you can delete the branch because we're probably not going to come back to it. Sometimes I let branches live on for a little bit in case people object. Like if I think there's a controversial change and there's a good chance that someone's going to basically be like, I completely object to this, back out all your changes, I'm very angry. At that point, you sometimes reopen the branch and keep going. But in this case, we're pretty sure we're not going to resurrect this branch. So go ahead and click on delete branch. Okay, and that's it. That's a full end-to-end edit cycle. That process is the same for pretty much any working group at W3C and any W3C community group. So if you can do that, you can edit any specification at W3C. Okay, so now to see if it actually happened, right? So go back to the live preview website. And this is w3c-ccg.github.io/did-primer/ and then this should bring it up. There you go. There it is, right? So if you look down at the bottom, IDIM musings. So that's it. There you go. So that shows you how you make edits and modifications to specs. And that's it. It's just rinse and repeat after that. It's the same process. So let me stop there, see if there are any questions on the process.
I thought company was rendered. Company name and URL?
It is. So ITIM Consulting.
Oh, I'm sorry. It is. Never mind. I got it.
I've got a question. So, is there a manual for some of the obscure corners, like the classes available and so on?
Yeah, so if you go ahead and open a new tab, Andrew, and search for respec, RESPEC space, and then W3C. Otherwise, you get a whole bunch of Aretha Franklin links. So click on W3C respec wiki. So this is the respec documentation, right? On the right are all of the config options that you can use. And this is basically, they have a user manual, they have a developer manual. Scroll up to the very, very top, Andrew. See the user guide, top right. Perfect. And then the web IDL guide, which we're not going to use, but configuring respec, it's really, really well documented. And this is basically a labor of love with basically, one to two people over the course of a decade. So Shane McCarran, I think, started a lot of this stuff, and then Robin Bergeon took it over, and now Marcos Caceres does most of the development here. And it is an amazing, wonderful tool, and Marcos pretty much does it for free for the world. He works at Mozilla. Did that answer your question, Dimitri?
Yes, thank you. That's perfect.
And basically, like, if you don't know how to do something in respec and you see another specification that does what you want to do, just go and look at the source and copy and paste it. And that'll give you, like, it'll probably work. So the first place to check is the easiest way is just find another spec where you're like, ooh, that looks cool. I want to be able to do that, and look at the source code, copy and paste it. If you can't find anything that does what you want to do, check in the user guide, and that should give you an idea. And the configuration options on the right give you kind of an idea of what's possible as well. So scanning those is helpful too.
I have a question, and it might not be as relevant to this family of specs as it was to some of the other stuff I've worked on. When I was working on, I don't remember which one, the most annoying thing was the bibliographic stuff. In CCG and in verifiable credentials. Is that done by the regular editors, or does some god come in and fix things for us?
It's a number 2.
Are you that god?
No, but I know how to get stuff into the bibliography. So there's a huge database of specifications. I think there's something like it must be like 1,300 specifications that are tracked with the editors and all the versions and like all that kind of stuff. It's the bibliographic database, respec bibliographic database. Whenever something hits official standards track or whatever, it's updated in that database. There are times where there's specs in flight and you have to add your own bibliographic entries. Just ask me or one of the other editors to do it. It's like not worth learning.
And I know how to do it too.
There you go. So ask Thea or myself, and we'd be happy to help. But yeah, there are a couple of specs where we do that. So like linked data signatures, and like those are specs that don't have bibliographic entries yet. And so there's a way of like shoehorning those references in.
We had to do it for the whole EPUB family when we brought them over.
Yep. Any other questions, concerns about the process?
Who would be considered an editor or an author? What's the difference?
Yeah, great question. So there is no hard and fast rule. I think so this is just my personal way that I think about it. Editors are people that have consistently contributed over long periods of time to the specification. They are responsible for at least 25% of all of the edits made to the specification over time. So if you go above 25% of the edits, you should be an editor. Editors, again, like it's very much a thankless job, but it's like really super important that you have editors that are committed to a specification and are constantly updating it and fixing it. So in general, editors are the people that are doing the grunt work of ensuring that the specification is moving forward. They're not necessarily the people that are thinking of the ideas and doing the implementations, but there's often a very strong overlap there. Authors are people that have contributed significant ideas to the specification. They're people that can point to like 10% of the specification came from them, either from their implementations, or they had the initial idea and really argued for it through the course of multiple years. Some groups make the author the community group itself. So that's what we did for this DID primer specification. When you're just like, there are so many people that contributed to this, and we can't really point a finger at like any one person or 3 people or 5 people that contributed. So once your list gets longer than 5 people that were really instrumental to it, then you start backing off and saying it's the community that's authoring it, it's the community that's editing it. But there's also, there's a counterbalance there where you really do want to give people credit for the work that they did, and people can get pretty I mean, people's feelings can get hurt when, and rightly so, when they've, put 2 or 3 years of their life into a document, and then all of a sudden they're removed from the editor's list, or they're removed from the author's list, or they never end up there. I've seen multiple times at W3C where someone has done a tremendous amount of work and they don't get their name onto the specification. So for example, like to this day, Dave Longley's name does not exist on the JSON-LD API spec, even though he did all 4 of the reference implementations in 4 different languages and came up with many of the algorithms by himself, right? So that was like a really stupid oversight that we made. And it's stuck, right? His name still doesn't appear on the specification. So we really want to avoid doing that. So if you're an editor for a specification, you should take extra care to make sure that you're properly attributing people that have contributed significant amounts to the specification. And it doesn't have to be stuff that made it in there. It can be just that person argued like incessantly for like a year and a half and was a good sounding board for what actually did end up going into the specification. So editors typically just do the grunt work. They make the will of the working group or the community group. They actualize it in specification text. While they may not be contributing any ideas, authors typically contribute ideas, and it's not just one idea, it's a significant portion of the ideas. It's a significant amount of the ideas. So, you don't get to be an author just because you authored one paragraph in the specification. You get to be an author because probably you're doing one of the implementations. You are very active in the issue trackers or the mailing lists. You've gotten a couple of features into the specification. You might not be editing the specification, but you've definitely pushed for decent chunks of the spec to come to light. Did that answer your question, Marcus?
Yeah, that was a great explanation. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions, concerns?
Is a specification usually only one file, or it can be a lot of HTML files?
Great question. We try to keep it to one file. The HTML5 specification is multiple thousands of pages long, and so they've broken it up into multiple files. So you can do that, but really making it multiple pages makes implementers really annoyed because they have to jump back and forth between multiple pages. So people tend to like a single web page, an index.html that basically has everything that they need to know to implement in that one file. So we basically, go ahead, sorry.
No, go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt, but I have a question that's related.
Sure. So don't do multiple files. We do multiple. Sorry. Let me clarify. Implementers like to see one file, but sometimes we do break things out into 2 different files. So, for example, Svea said, bibliography, that can be a separate JavaScript file. There are also people that we have terminology in these specifications, and we usually make those separate files as well so that people can pull in terminology, like share terminology between specifications. So those are examples where you might break things out into multiple files. You'll break your terminology out into one file so other specs can include it. You'll break your bibliography out into another file so you're not junking up the main specification. And then the rest of the specification text proper goes in the index.html file.
Manu?
Sorry, did that answer the question? Was that Bowden?
Yes, perfect.
Okay.
I have a quick question about GitHub. What is the thinking about when to fork into your own repo versus just making a branch on the main repo?
So don't fork into your own repo, because it means that editors, especially if we're editing specs, it means that other editors can't jump in and take a branch forward. without having to do pull requests to your personal repo. It just, so we're in this situation kind of with David Chadwick in the VC data model spec, where he's got his own private repo, and the only way that I can help him move his pull requests forward is to ask him to do pull requests, which is like, it's confusing to people that are just starting off. Like it's hard for him to manage all of that stuff. But so if he were to actually be working off of a branch in the VC data model repo, he and I could collaborate on pull requests, but because he's not doing it, it makes it harder to do it. So typically don't fork into your own repo if you're working on these specs.
If I can add to that regarding like general GitHub culture, usually what determines forking or branching is whether or not you have write access to the repo. So if you have write access, if you're an editor or part of the team, you almost never want to fork. It's always just like a branch.
Yep.
The forking is there for outside contributors that don't have write access.
Exactly right. And that's exactly the situation we're in with David Chadwick. Like it would probably, in hindsight, David should probably be an editor of the spec at this point because he's put in so many PRs. But that's not the case. And so he has no choice but to fork. And that has led to a bunch of problems with slowing down his PRs getting into the spec just because I can't jump in and do a quick typo fix. I have to ask him to do it or do a PR against his repo. But yes, exactly right, Dimitri. And Dimitri, I think you had another comment or a question.
I had a quick question about the bibliography. Why is it done as footnotes as opposed to links? Is that for printing?
That's one of those weird W3C culture things. I don't know.
It's just to drive everybody crazy.
That makes sense.
Yeah,
it works.
It's actually
that's believable.
It's tradition. I believe it's actually. I forgot which style of citation, but it's similar to the way that it's done in scholarly publishing for citations, where you have a list of references at the end. It's one of the formal ways of citation.
Okay, that reminded me. Yes, so the reason that it's done is it comes from a time when W3C specs used to be printed out, and they wanted to make sure that if you printed these things out, that they would continue to, like, it makes sense on a printed page, right? Which is super weird for like the web, right? But that's kind of where it came from. But at the same time, you're allowed to link to anything that you want in the document. But that's usually frowned upon, right? So when you go through final spec, approval, there's this link checking process that will literally go through every single link in the document to make sure that it's still valid and doesn't do a redirect. And so the less links that you actually end up using in the body of the text, the better off that you are. In modern times, I don't think it makes all that much sense. Like, I don't know, well, actually I shouldn't say that. I still do know people that will print out the whole spec and then, mark it up with a pen and then scan those PDFs and mail it back to the editors.
Got it.
But yeah, there you go. Any other questions, concerns around the editorial process? Does this seem like something that's, hopefully this is not that wasn't a scary process. Like it is a bit tough to get started, but once you get started, it's the same thing. Like you're just doing the same thing over and over and over again for years.
Yeah, the most useful thing for me was actually just seeing the GitHub flow, because I've always been confused.
Okay, good. There are a couple of other kind of takeaways from this. One of them is keep your pull requests very small and focused. So a good pull request is one where you go in and you update a small section of the specification or a paragraph, and that's it. And a bad pull request is one where you go and you make a ton of unrelated edits in the same pull request. The reason that's a bad pull request is because you are enabling people to have an issue with any one of those unrelated things. And you've basically tied all of your changes together. You've kind of like spaghetti coded all of your changes together. The more changes you make to a specification, the greater the chance that there will be more people objecting to the change that you're making. And the worst position to be in is where someone is objecting to something completely different in one part of your pull request to someone else complaining about something totally different in another part of your pull request, right? So try to keep your pull requests to changing about, 1 to 2 paragraphs at a time. Keep it focused to one topic. Try to associate it with one issue. And the more you keep it focused like that, the greater the chance that your pull request will be pulled in rapidly.
I have one quick question on that topic, Manu. You just reminded me. If you have a PR that's responding to an issue that you want to have close the issue when it gets pulled in, how do you make that link?
Good question. So there is a in your commit message, you can say what issue your commit fixes. So you'd say something like, let's go back to let me see. Let me share my screen real quick. So see this update personal URL. Andrew could have actually put in something like update personal URL fixes number 34. So that says I'm fixing issue 34 with this commit. And when you say fixes 34, when that pull request is pulled in, GitHub will automatically close the issue. It'll automatically reference and close the issue. So on the issue itself, it'll say this issue has been closed via pull request number 1 up here, right? So all you need to do is fixes 34, and if you put fixes 34 in there, the second the pull request is pulled in, it'll close the issue. So that automates issue closing, and actually we suggest people do that. Really, you shouldn't be doing a PR unless there's an issue associated with it. So you'll almost always, at least in one of your commits, say fixes number whatever. Whatever the issue number is. Did that make sense, Matt?
Yep. Yeah, that was great. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions, concerns? I'm noting we're an hour and a half in, 90 minutes in. And I think that's pretty much it. Like that's pretty much all you need to know. Everything else is just minor variations on what we just covered.
No, that's great. That's incredibly helpful. And like I said, I'll pull down the video and chop it up and put in some other stuff around it so that's usable again.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Andrew. And if you need some place to share the full video, let me know. We can put it up on one of our servers if YouTube doesn't. I don't know how long you can, how large the files can be on YouTube, but let us know what we can do to make this widely available, because this is going to be super helpful to people just getting started.
Yep, absolutely. And knowing that the that cleanish did primer document exists, maybe save it, save a copy.
Yeah, we should. We don't have a template, so we should probably save the template to ease other people starting specs.
It might make sense to just make a gist for that.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, we should do that. So let me make a gist for that right now, and it'll just be a CCG gist. But yeah, I'll make a gist for that and then link it somewhere. So we'll probably we'll create a page, Andrew, for getting started editing. We'll put the link to the video there, and we'll put some other helpful links, like a link to the gist as well, and that'll help people get started.
Okay, and I can insert a static screen on the end of the video as well, pointing at that.
Perfect. Awesome. Okay. Anything else before we hang up? Awesome. Then with that, thank you, Andrew, for the Zoom room and the video recording and editing and all that kind of stuff.
Yep.
And
And
thanks everyone
thank
else
you
for
taking the time to do it. It's definitely worthwhile.
No problem. No problem. Awesome. Have a great rest of the week, everyone.
See you guys.
Thank you. Bye. Bye.